Hello and welcome back to another master plan video. I know we do so many of these a year, maybe 4 or 5. I know, crazy. I know you're seeing a lot of more of my face recently. Good thing, bad thing, up for you to decide. My hair, as you can see, looks terrible today, but it is what it is. Connor is here with me, of course. I mean, he has to be here. Who else would run the actual YouTube video recording? So, also he knows a lot about fantasy, excuse me, a lot about football, mock drafts,
Yeah, I'm
and
a
the like.
big draft guy. I have a
Yeah,
routine
he
on
really
draft
is.
day. I watch the movie Draft Day. I put out 10
Listen,
mock
if you haven't
drafts.
watched the movie Draft Day, it's the best production of an NFL film I've ever seen. Right behind the one where the guy from the Adam Sandler's movies plays Sean Payton in the Bounty Gate
that was
scandal. I don't know
that
the
was
name. I don't know the name of the movie or the actor, but it's the one who played Paul Blart, whoever that guy is. So, cheers to that movie. All right,
yeah. I
the
think the
mock
movie's
draft
called
we should.
Home Team. Um,
Mm,
it's more about him coaching the kids team.
yeah, that's
And
crazy, isn't
Kevin
it?
James is the actor.
Imagine your son's your opponent's Pop Warner team is coached by
Sean Payton.
Sean Payton. Like that's crazy. You show up, you're like, bro, come on now, all right? Like this is a little unfair, all
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Pop Warner coaches, Sean Payton, they're kind of two different levels. All right.
My coach was Jeb's dad. My friend Jeb's dad. Their coach Sean Payton. I don't know
I
better
mean,
odds
it's
than
not,
that.
it's a mismatch
You
for
know.
sure. All right. The mock draft should be up to a right. We're gonna go through each pick. We're gonna go through why we selected
And we're gonna
each
pick.
player.
I have PFF up, and we're gonna kind of pick, talk about options. Maybe we'll change what we originally thought. We talked through a couple
Oh,
picks
okay.
so far,
Okay.
but I have
Word,
PFF
word.
up. And to start, it's obviously the Panthers after trading up.
Yeah, and they're not going to trade out of this pick. That's just not going to
They
happen.
could. There's been rumors they've been willing to trade out. They wanted the flexibility of having the number one pick. I mean, even if they don't know who they want, a trade down to two, it is still possible. Or a trade down to four. You just want the They just wanted the flexibility of not being kind of out of this QB spot. Maybe that's all smoke. Maybe they have a specific guy in mind. Obviously,
I
they've
mean,
talked
I,
about different guys.
listen, I think you're always considering all your options. I don't think you're ever going to say, oh, 100% this is what I'm doing, and someone makes you an offer. I mean, back in what was it, 98 or 99, when you had the Ricky Williams trade where the Saints gave up like 3 first-round picks in exchange for uh, Ricky Williams number 5. Cincinnati drafted some complete bust at number 2, and they could have had, I think, 4 first-round picks, 3 or 4 first-round picks, had they accepted that deal. So, you know, the point of that story is you're never going to say, oh, 100% this is what I'm doing. If a team makes you a good offer, team makes you a good offer. But
Exactly.
it's my belief that the Panthers are going to select a quarterback here. They're going to select their number 1 guy on the board.
And then
And
there's
I
the
believe that,
conversation of who it will be. Bryce Young
yeah,
has been the QB1 for 90% of the season. After the college football playoff semifinals, CJ Stroud took a big jump, and then combine and pro day has rocketed Anthony. Like at the halfway point of the season, it was a Bryce Young, Will Levis conversation. And now we're at the point where it's one of three guys, and Will Levis isn't one of the guys.
right.
So
Yeah,
it's just an
personally,
interesting
I'm not,
conversation.
I just don't like Will Levis. I don't think I don't even think he will get drafted in the first round. I don't believe he will be. I think he's talented, but I don't think he's as
I
talented
I,
as
I think he'll go in the first round. Some team will trade back up just to have that fifth year option available on a um, even if you only trade up 5 6. The Raiders are trading up round 2 pick 7 to round 1 pick 30 if they're looking to get up to that point.
yeah. Personally, the guy who I see going at number 1, For me, it's Anthony Richardson. I don't love evaluating players solely based off of their combine and stuff like that, but Anthony Richardson is such a
He had
talent
the best combine performance of a QB we've
of any
seen.
quarterback. He
His
and he's to me he is a someone who a coach like Frank Reich I really think would like. He's a quarterback who you can mold. He's got all the talent, all the
and,
physical ability that you'd want, and all you have to do is you have to mold him into the quarterback that you want him to be.
and
Which I
looking
think
at
is
his completion percentage, which is the big knock against him, his wide receivers had the most drops in all of college football, and boys had no hands. He played
yeah,
the
and you
toughest
also have to remember,
defenses, counting C.J. Stroud in Ohio State, Bryce Young Alabama. Florida played the toughest defenses through the year in terms of
well that and
deposit
it's
score.
also Florida. It's not they're not an SEC school. They're not a top school in in terms of football. It's like why are we uh uh
If you gave Anthony Richardson like Kyle Pitts out there, he would be, I think, a pure number one. No one from Florida, from that Florida like skill positions, are going to come close to drafted. If you're looking at like what Kyle Trask had on that Florida roster, like Kadarius Toney, Kyle Pitts, uh, just really good kind of.
and by the way, no one thought that Kyle Trask was a first round talent pretty much anyways. I mean, he was
But in the
wherever
second,
he was
yeah,
drafted is pretty much where people thought he was going to go anyways.
Van
Um,
Jefferson as well, I think, was there. So they had overwhelming talent for that guy. Anthony Richardson had none of that, and it's just like imagine him with those prospects that Florida can get. He just was stacked up with a horrible offense, terrible skill position players, and he made it work. And this is you're looking at the legs of Lamar with good size, the arm strength of Josh Allen. Like this is the
yeah,
mold
exactly.
for new age quarterback. This is the mold you want. Think about Josh Allen. Think about if Josh Allen had Lamar's running ability, basically, and obviously he might not live up to that. Josh Allen the first 2 years wasn't that good, low completion percentage. Kind of, he wasn't looked at as that good a prospect, but then he lived up to that potential. Can Anthony Richardson live up to that? There's one guy, or the main guy in this league that I would trust to get the production out of a quarterback like that is going to be Frank Reich. So
Exactly, and that's what I'm saying.
there's
I don't
smoke
think
around
that
Bryce Young. Obviously, the QB's coach there has said he likes Stroud the best, and he's the betting favorite. But I think we go Anthony Richardson.
I'm going Anthony Richardson. I think that's Frank Reich's type of guy that he would want to draft. I have to go Anthony Richardson here. And then at 2, it's the Texans. I think they go Stroud. I think Stroud's the guy for them. I think Bryce Young, listen, we had about 4 or 5 years ago, there was a huge discussion, all your you know, commentators, ESPN, Fox, whatever, guys, all talking about, oh, look at Russell Wilson, look at Kyler Murray, look at Baker Mayfield, all these talented quarterbacks, smaller size, look at all these talented quarterbacks. I think what we've realized in the NFL, which is the truth, it's the undeniable truth, is that playing with a smaller stature like Bryce Young, right? It's a disadvantage. And there
For
are
sure.
quarterbacks who can overcome that. That's 100% true. But a lot of guys, Kyler Murray's a great talent, but has, there are a lot of debates about his career. Russell Wilson, he's a great quarterback, but, outside of him, the list is very, very short.
Yeah.
So I think if I'm the Texans, I think CJ Stroud, 6'3", more presence in the pocket. I think he's the type of guy that the Texans want to draft. I think
And
he's
Bryce Young's the day one starter here. He's the only QB in this draft that I look at and think I'm going to start this guy on day one. Truly, I think you're sitting Anthony Richardson, you're sitting C.J. Stroud, you're sitting Will Levis for at least half a season, and the Texans are a team that needs that day one starter quarterback in Bryce Young, the guy who may have the lowest ceiling because of his size. and go for the guy who you can mold under this new D'Amico Ryans
Right.
regime, who you're expecting. It's the Texans, but you're expecting him to be there
Exactly.
multiple
Let's
years.
be clear. Let's be clear. The Texans are not. They don't need a day one
They're not
starter. They're not a
competing.
good
They're not
team.
trying. They're not really
Right.
trying to make the playoffs here. You have a good young core,
Right.
and you're looking to build on that.
And by the way, a good quarterback, a good young quarterback, is not going to make the difference between them making the playoffs and them missing the playoffs. It's not going to make that big of a
Yeah,
difference. They might win a couple extra games, but down the road, I think C.J. Stroud also seems to be the odds-on favorite to who they would pick. Um, I'll roll with Stroud here. I think that's the right pick.
now the Cardinals
And
are
then
on
at
the
number
board.
three, yeah. So at number three, we had mocked this, and I really like our top four. Honestly, I think that the Colts are a team. I think that Chris Ballard is one of the worst GMs in the league. Him, Jeffrey Loomis are up there. They're absolutely horrible at their jobs. And Chris Ballard is the type of guy under a lot of pressure from Jim Irsay. Number one, number two, he's under a lot. If he does not build a successful team this season, I think he's gone. Anyways, I don't think that he has a chance of surviving another poor season from the Colts. And with a team, new head coach. I know
Eh,
Jim Irsay. Listen, he's not going to be firing. Who I forget their head coach, but it's whoever the Eagles OC was. So he's going to be looking to Chris Ballard to make a change. I think that Chris Ballard has to toss his chips into the table. I think he trades up. I think he makes a move. No matter where it is, we have it mocked
yeah,
here, obviously. But I think,
obviously, like if all things go right, the Cardinals will just draft their best player available, and you get your QB. But the Cardinals now, Bryce Young, who a lot consider the QB1, is on the board, and there's a few QB needy teams. Even the Seahawks could jump too if they like him enough, just to get above this Colts team, who teams know is taking a quarterback. I don't want Will Levis. This is an open division. You're hoping Bryce Young can come in and help you still compete for this division. The division looks awful. Um, and kind of defaulting on, hey, maybe Cardinals just take the best play available and a guy Bryce Young drops to us. I'm not doing that. I'm saying this is an Alabama running quarterback who has a decent arm, not amazing size, and that's what Steichen just made an incredible offense in Philadelphia with.
yeah. By the way, Jalen Hurts and Bryce Young, I think, are great comparisons. Both played for the
Bryce
same
Young
school.
obviously a bit smaller, um, by a few inches, but it's the same kind of style that you can run with Bryce Young in that same
Right.
system.
And also,
And I just
a
don't
team
want
like
Will
the Colts,
Levis.
a team like the Colts is far more ready to make a playoff run than the Texans or the Panthers are. It's just
And
a
I,
fact.
and I
So,
can't just have someone jump me and then at 4 go Will Levis. I can't. Obviously, you can take the best defender on the board, but it's said the ownership, they really want to go QB here. And I can't just sit there and maybe be stuck with Will Levis at the 4th overall pick. I think that's too high for him. I think teams are realizing that's too high for him. And I don't think it'll happen. So yeah, we're gonna have the Colts give up
absolutely.
an extra first round pick. Feels like a lot, but that makes sense in that kind of scenario.
Yeah, and again,
and maybe
it's
it can be
Chris
done
Ballard.
with 2 seconds, whatever. Not just getting up to this 3rd overall.
Yes. And so then we come to number four, Connor. Again, to me, your Cardinals team, obviously they new defensive head coach anyways. All the more reason to draft the best defensive player on the board, Will Anderson.
Yeah,
I think that's
since the order got set, I've always had them get Will Anderson, especially losing J.J. Watt, lost Chandler Jones last year. Your edge is weak, and they just lost Zach Allen, right, as well. So your edge rushing core is in the gutter, really. And here, in my early drafts, I went Bryce Young, Jalen Carter, Will Anderson. But it still always came to Will Anderson at the Cardinals. I think Jalen Carter is good, but you're not taking that risk. Will Anderson had one of the best edge rushing seasons we did the year before this one. And he had a down year, yes, but I think you're still saying that upside's there. Those intangibles are there. He's just a great overall player. Good size, really, really has high potential, and also can bring it day one. So I think it has to be Will Anderson as the best guy off the board for them to bolsterize that edge rushing core that is pretty terrible at this current moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I almost think, Connor, and I almost think that the Cardinals as a team are they're in need of someone like this. I think they're in need of a
A
player like
cornerstone.
this.
A guy you say, this is going to be my edge rusher for the next 8 years. No more year on, year off turnover. Who knows what's happening with their offense right now? Just get a stable guy on defense that you can rely on to give you 10 plus sack seasons for the next 8 years.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, let's move on to number 5. Seahawks here. I don't think that they trade out of it. What do you think?
Yeah, it's an interesting spot because obviously if they like Will Levis enough, you can go Will Levis. I don't like that. Personally, for them, they just re-signed Gino. Obviously, there are opt-outs. It's not a great contract for Gino, but if he plays well, he'll be fine under it. You could get yourself a real number 2 next to Woolen. Obviously, wide receiver 3 has been an issue for them. But I think your biggest need right now is D-line, and yes, you could trade maybe the Eagles, who have been heavily talking with Jordan Davis, or Jalen Carter. They have Jordan Davis, who have been heavily talking with that guy. They see, hey, he's falling, but he's probably not going to fall to 10. I know his agent just said he's guaranteed he's going in the top 10. And you say, if you're the Eagles, I'm willing to give up an extra first round pick to get this guy and build this best front 7 ever in college. This core of Nakobe Dean, Jalen Carter, and Jordan Davis, and I'm willing to build that for my team for the next 10 years. And really, when you lose Fletcher Cox, when you lose these guys, have that guy.
And by the way, again, when we talk about Seattle, right? And I know I may be getting ahead of myself here and whatever, but I look to coaching, and Pete Carroll is the type of guy. I think defensive coaching, it's been talked about a lot recently. Oh my God, we have. Sorry, I'm trying to put the words together in my head. It's been a long day. The Masters were on. Everything's been happening.
Red Sox
as it was saying, though,
Chris Sale got his first
Red
win
Sox
since
won.
September 2021.
It's been crazy. Okay, as I was saying, though, the point I was trying to make. With Tyree Wilson, right, and with the Seahawks, Pete Carroll's a defensive guy, and I feel like when we look at the Seattle team, they're a very good team overall. They have a good O-line. It's not perfect. 2 good wide receivers. Gino had a great season last season, right? Good running back, Kenneth Walker. Connor, you know a lot about Kenneth Walker. Kenneth God, that's what we call him. And they're a good drafting team. They have Tariq Woolen they got in the 5th round last year. To me, this makes a lot of sense. Put him at 5. Tyree Wilson, get a good edge guy. That's the one thing.
Yeah, and Jalen Carter, he's not a locker room guy, and that's something Pete Carroll
And by
values.
the way, you look at all these guys, all these teams that have, hey, listen, great edge guys. All the good teams have great edge guys, right, Connor? That's how I see it. Every good team out there, oh my God, good edge guy, good edge guy, good edge guy, good edge guy. Every solid NFL team that's looking to make a push into the playoffs, whether you're the Minnesota Vikings and you have Za'Darius Smith,
you need someone to set an edge, and you need someone to get to the quarterback.
And that's the one thing when I watched the Seahawks last year that I felt, this team kind of lacks this. So I really like a Tyree Wilson pick here. I think that he's fantastic, great player. Let's lock him in.
Yeah, so we said potentially Eagles could trade up for Jalen Carter. We don't think the Seahawks would. I think the Bears could also look to trade up and secure Jalen Carter so they can't be jumped. They've been heavily rumored. But if we're sticking here, which we will, I think Tyree Wilson, high upside guy, good pass rusher, really athletic, really big. He can give you 40 QB pressures a season.
Yeah, and so let's move on to number 6 because I think that Number 6 for the almost the same reason I want to talk about 5 is 6 because when we look at number 6, Connor, to me, you have a team like the Seahawks that with a better defensive line presence because they already have edges. They already have great edges. This team struggles. I think they're going to be better in the pass in pass pro this year. Not pass protection, excuse me, in cornerback wise. I think
Yeah,
that
their defense. They
is not
signed.
going to have as bad of a season. They're going to have guys
It's
who are playing better.
it's been heavily mocked for them to take a corner here for the Lions, but they just signed Cam Sutton. They signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson. They signed Emmanuel Mosley. They still have Jeff Okudah coming off injury. They have Jerry Jacobs who had a breakout season. So like you're looking here, and I'm like, yeah, they could use the cornerback, but Okudah and Sutton are there for multiple years.
Word.
Chauncey Gardner's hitting your slot. You got Tracy Walker, could be Joseph in the safety slots, and you also have Mosley as depth. I think he's on a 1-year deal though. But at least like multiple of those guys are on multi-year seasons, and you have another first-round pick. If you don't love Devon Witherspoon or Christian Gonzalez enough, I think it's weaker than a lot of these recent time cornerback drafts.
And that's where I say, okay, Jalen Carter is the perfect guy to go here. He fits the Dan Campbell mold perfectly of the guy who he would want to have on his team.
And obviously, if they learn more about the off the field stuff, if he doesn't lose down the weight by draft time, I'm sure teams are checking him with weight and everything. And
absolutely, things can change. Everything
he can definitely drop. And a lot of mocks recently have him dropping out of the top 10. But I just see yesterday, that his agents like, we've been guaranteed we're going in the top 10. And I'm thinking, hey, if other teams still think he's a top 10 guy, I think he can be that guy for us. He's the best player in this draft. Just has those concerns, has those weight concerns, has those off the field issue concerns. But I think he's the number one prospect in this draft.
Hey, and furthermore, by the way, I think that really creates a really nice situation. Number 7. I always like to have my drafts really everything flows, right? There's not a lot of points where I'm like, oh, this is a really confusing pick. I look at 7 and I say to myself, the Raiders are consistently one of those teams that has the worst cornerbacking core in the NFL. It's just atrocious.
Every year have they even re-signed Rock Ya-Sin yet?
I don't even know. And Rock Ya-Sin's good, but he's not. You know, this is a selection for me where the Raiders.
Rock Ya-Sin's a free agent, so
right.
Now, he's that guy they traded. What? Who they trade for? They traded Yannick Ngakoue, who was their best edge rusher, for Rock Ya-Sin, just for him to.
Right, and they've also made a lot of crazy draft moves, but I think this is where they have to take a corner. They have to sit down, take your medicine, and you have to take a cornerback here. It's either a cornerback or a lineman here. And it doesn't feel like this is a place where you're going to take a lineman. If they're taking a lineman in the first round, they're going to move back. I don't see them taking a lineman in the top 10. They might fall back to 10, 11, 12 for that. That's how I see it, Colin.
Yeah, and your cornerback core is like Nate Hobbs, Brandon Facyson. It's ugly.
They need somebody. They need somebody.
And obviously, the other guy to be mentioned here is Will Levis, of course. They are a team that Jimmy Garoppolo is on a non-guaranteed deal. You can get out of him and take a rookie behind him if you want to. But I don't think they're going for that, and I don't think Will Levis is the guy. If they suck with Jimmy G, you have a much better draft class next year.
Right. That's how I see it. They're not going to go quarterback because they just signed Jimmy G. I know it wasn't a bunch of money, but the point is. So I think they take either Devon Witherspoon or Christian Gonzalez here. I think it's one or the other. I think they're very comparable. We marked yesterday Devon Witherspoon. I could see it going either way, but it's one of those situations where the Raiders, they could draft somebody else, but it's like, why? They could draft an edge guy, but then, you do have a great edge. The issue is you still have no one in coverage.
And Chandler Jones had a better second half to last year. Sure. Hoping they can. Falcons on the board. It has to be pass rush. Their front seven's not good. Guys to be mentioned: Lucas Van Ness is there. Brian Bresee and Nolan Smith have combine. but the guy that I think has become super underrated is Miles Murphy. This is a guy that I was mocking top 5 a couple months ago, that he sat out the combine and whatnot, and for some reason he's dropped into the 20s. He produced at a very high level, and his pro day was electric. He had an amazing pro day, like a 9.7 in terms of athletic ability, whatnot. He has great moves.
And I think right. And so what you'll understand is when you watch Connor and I talk about picks, right? Connor is very much in tune with who the players are, what they're, all that stuff.
This is a guy, yeah. I mean, I'm looking through average draft position on PFF. It's a guy who the 75 percentile had him going top 4.
Right, and when I talk about draft, I talk about, okay, here's a team, here's what they're good at, here's what they're bad at, here's who their GM is, here's what they like to do. That's how I treat the draft. I look at it from that perspective, and I think when you put Connor and I together, you get a very holistic. If you're applying to college or taking any college tours, you will hear that word a lot. Every single college tour, we're a very holistic university. I digress. The point I'm trying to make here is that when you listen to Connor and I, you get a very well-rounded perspective of what the actual draft is going to look like. We think, or we expect.
I don't get his drop. Mel Kiper's last mock draft didn't have him in the first round. And I don't get why.
Kiper also doesn't know anything about the draft, Connor. I mean, he's
but he hears from teams. He has team connection.
Listen, I got team connections too, all right? Justin Forsett liked one of my tweets today. How about that?
Like, obviously, his freshman year may have been his best year. But, I mean, this guy is just so good, so versatile. I don't get why he's dropping. And if he drops, he drops. But here I'm looking at a team. Let's take the guy who was the best edge rusher in his freshman season in college, Miles Murphy, and hope this guy can turn out well. And this is a guy that, after the season ended, dropped in mock boards. Not during the season. Obviously, he did regress in terms of production during the season from his last 2 seasons. But overall, it was past the season when the mock drafters decided, we're going to drop this guy into the late 20s. And it doesn't make sense. He's you have guys jumping up boards. Nolan Smith, after the combine, jumped top 10 and some. Lucas Van Ness, out of nowhere, has jumped into like it's a guy that was 88th, 20th percentile during the season, and it was after the season when he finally jumped up to like top 15. And it's crazy. And he had a decent combine, but it's just something that I'm not willing to bet on a guy like that versus a guy who's proven it in Miles Murphy.
Okay, and then let's talk about number 9. And I think this is, you look at the Bears. I think at this point they've committed to Justin Fields. I think that, and by the way, good move. I think Justin Fields is a guy who I see as having a lot of potential. If you give him a decent wide receiving core and some actual protection, I think he can be a very good quarterback. They kind of
got him a decent wide receiver core.
Right. They got DJ Moore. They have Chase Claypool. He thinks he's the 3rd best wide receiver in the league. If you put a 0 at the end of that, he's 0 and add probably 20. You're probably there. Probably he's around 50. Maybe a little bit lower. They have some, and then they have St. Brown's brother. I'll say this: if the Bears don't draft a tackle, it's a huge mistake. This offensive line.
I think there is one scenario where they don't draft a tackle, and that's if Jalen Carter drops to 9. If Jalen Carter drops to 9, you take him. I think you're here for the Bears, and you get that value that he's probably the guy you were considering at number 1 before you traded the pick. Was Jalen Carter. And now he's dropped to 9, and you're like, hey, we can get 2 extra first-round picks and DJ Moore and get the same guy. You're ecstatic. But in a scenario, obviously Jalen Carter's off the board, and I think you have to go tackle. And obviously a lot of people rank Skoronski top, or there's a mix on guys.
We're looking for a true tackle.
A true tackle and a guy with connections to Justin Fields.
Right.
It's Paris
And that's
Johnson. He's
Paris
the best
Johnson.
tackle on the board. This is a guy that I projected before the season started. I thought he'd be a top 3 pick in the draft before knowing this season, anything before this NFL season. And obviously, somehow no tackle needy teams was really at the top. I mean, like
Yeah,
Chicago,
it just would have
Houston,
happened that way.
well, there's all
Yeah,
great O lines, but like this is the guy that I think he is top 5 talent. I think he's your Tristan Wirfs of this draft. Really, guys obviously have other ideas of your Anton Harrison is your Mackay Becton from that draft, or your Darnell Wright from that, and your but I think Paris Johnson, he's the clear cut tackle. He played at a high level the whole time. It's not about upside for tackles, really. I'm not picking a guy with intangibles for my tackle. I'm picking a guy who can freaking block. And he has that connection with your franchise quarterback.
and then okay, let's talk about 10 because I think 10 is one of the most interesting points in the draft. Right, you have an Eagles team that obviously just made it to the Super Bowl. And at this position, right, you look at the guys available. I think that if they were to stay at this position, Connor, I think of Christian Gonzalez as probably the guy I think that they would take.
Yeah, and there's a few options. They've scouted Lucas Van Ness a lot. They scouted the corners a lot. And obviously, the big name, Behan Robinson, is there. Um,
Right. I can't see them. I think Bijan Robinson or Christian Gonzalez, but I don't love those picks at number 10. We went with a trade. We had the Texans trade up from 12 to 10 to take Jackson Smith Najiba. He's a good player and he's a good wide receiver. You know, you obviously, hypothetically, in our mock draft, you just drafted Stroud. Now, okay, now you get to pair him with his college wide receiver, right? We've
yeah,
seen that work in the past.
you get
Joe
him.
Burrow, Jamar Chase
You
worked
get him his
very
weapon.
well.
If you're
Right.
bad, which people expect you to be next year, maybe get Marvin Harrison too, and just get the whole band back together.
Right.
Uh,
Just bring back everyone from Ohio State. It's all okay.
but yeah, you
I
get.
think it's a good move. I think it's a good mock. I
You're
think it makes
worried
sense.
about the Titans maybe grabbing him. I think he is the best receiver on the board. There were concerns
Right,
about
and that's
character,
where we
and
had a
he's a
trade
kind
up
of
because I
runaway.
think there are other teams. Talk about the Giants, the Cowboys, both as candidates to trade up, either getting a wide receiver, or Bijan Robinson. I know that the Cowboys would be a team that I would mock heavily getting Bijan Robinson, and we'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, this seems like the most sensible place for a if you can help it. The Eagles probably don't want to trade in division. You know, if they can help it. Obviously, they've done it many times in the past, but ideally, I don't think they would want to do that. You're only dropping back 2 positions. You're probably still going to get the player you want. To me, I think it's a good move. I like the move, and I think it's a great move for both teams. Honestly,
I think it'll work well. I think get a reliable receiver.
yeah.
Obviously, Brandon Cooks is Brandon Cooks now. Is he a Cowboy now?
I think so. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, so he's a Cowboy now. You're looking at kind of a new age receiving core that doesn't have that much help. Now you have a rookie quarterback, a second year running back. You're looking to get that core and add your third skill position there to that kind of core of players, and you already have a good O line thing to give them time to create separation. A lot of issues with these rebuilding teams is their O line is trash. And that's where you start the rebuild through the line. Through the D line, through the O line, you start the rebuild through the lines. Before you get your franchise quarterback, unless it's like an insane prospect at number one, you build through the and they've done that. Now they're getting the pieces around that elite O line with Laramie Tunsil, Titus Howard, that kind of really solid O line.
Absolutely. All right. Let's talk about 11 then. I think we mocked this heavily. Peter Skoronsky going
Yeah,
here.
and you consider a wide receiver, I think. But I think the way you
Absolutely.
run your offense, and I mean, getting another wide receiver is Ryan Tannehill really going to provide me, or Emily Cucker going to provide my wide receiver great looks if he gets separation, more so than
It's
Derrick
not even
Henry
about
getting
that.
the yards.
You also lost Taylor Lewan. You've lost linemen. Tannehill was injured last season, basically due to the fact that you couldn't protect him. And Mike Vrabel's the type of guy who's not necessarily going to, he's not gonna just draft someone.
And they
Draft a
just
skill position.
drafted the first round wide receiver just last year.
Right.
And he
that's
looked
also
good towards the end of the season. Treylon Burks looked like a good wide receiver. He just had injury issues at the start. But Peter Skoronski, a lot of flexibility, short arms, so might be an NFL level guard, but I still think it's possible he plays tackle. I think Lane Johnson suffered the same fate, but people were kind of having him go lower because of the length of his, and he was something like that, and he's done perfectly fine, more than fine as a tackle.
Yeah, Lane Johnson, Super Bowl winner, Super Bowl caliber player, Pro Bowler, all that stuff. He's all right.
And that's not to say Pete Skoronski will be Lane Johnson. I'm just saying the arm size is not the end all be all for tackles. And if it is, he becomes an elite level guard.
Right. Just like how quarterback height is not the end all be all. It's definitely something you have to factor in, but it's not the end all be all. Right. All right. Let's talk about number 12.
Michael,
traded.
I'm willing to switch it up from what we discussed before. I've been thinking about it. They're looking at guys towards that end of the first round. Joey Porter, they brought in for Emmanuel Forbes, etc. I'm willing to go Bijan here.
For
the Eagles here. We originally mocked Christian Gonzalez. But I think in this scenario, you could be looking at a situation where we don't like Christian Gonzalez that much better than we do Emmanuel Forbes, who'll be there at 31.
I definitely could see that. I think Bijan's a great player. It seems like
we
lost Miles Sanders.
It's always more fun when we do things on the fly. Some picks remain the same, some picks will change.
All right, I think that's good. We can do Bijan because I think that this is a good place for Bijan to go. I think he's a super talented player. I think that the Eagles utilize their run game a lot.
You don't have to draft off value if you're the Eagles. You draft what's going to get you back to the Super Bowl. And
exactly.
I think elite level running back play, you have him, you have Penny, you have now the kid from the Seahawks.
Penny?
Rashad Penny, Penny Gainwell.
But get yourself.
But this is an elite running back. This is a running back that we've seen go before. It's like a Saquon Barkley type running back going. It's a Derrick Henry type running back going. It's one of these downhill workhorse backs who just looks unreal in college.
Although, just remember, right, the last big running back that was drafted from the Longhorns was, in fact, Ricky Williams. So, just be wary of that. But more seriously, I do like Bijan. I think he's a great talent. I think this is a fun place for him. I like him going to Philadelphia. Which means the Jets. I still don't think that this anything changes anything for the Jets at 13, anyways.
You need a tackle.
You need to go tackle.
Well, obviously the Aaron Rodgers stuff we expect to get done before the draft. Who the hell knows what is happening? We expect it to get
done. Period.
Yeah.
As it stands now, we expect them to draft a tackle if they're sitting at 13. I mean, that's kind of what
I really don't know. I mean, we haven't heard much at all from this trade standpoint and what's kind of happening. It sounded like, and now apparently the Niners are getting involved potentially. It's a really, really weird scenario right now. But we expected to go through, and you got the receivers he wanted. You have a solid receiving core with Lazard, with Garrett Williams, they traded Elijah Moore, right? You still have solid. Corey Davis is still there. You still have pieces there, and I think you got to protect the quarterback. And who knows if Mekhi Becton comes healthy? And I think It could be a number of guys. I think we're gonna go Broderick Jones. I don't know why he's ranked so low on PF. Oh, I guess they graded him poorly, so they dropped him. But I mean, he's dominant. He's high upside. He's huge. He's what I see most having as either the number 2 or number 3 tackle off the board, and I think it makes the most sense for the Jets.
Right, which means at 14, as a Patriots fan, listen, I hope Bill Belichick does his,
Now, does your mindset change now that Christian Gonzalez is still here?
no, not at all. Not at all. Not at all. I like our cornerbacks. I think they're good.
I let Michael take this pick himself because he's the Patriots fan.
Jacoby Myers is gone. Nelson Aguilar, thank God, is gone. We need a wide receiver. I think that Zay Flowers makes the most sense here. I really like his abilities. First off, he's a guy who can do a lot of different things. I think Mac Jones would really vibe with a wide receiver like him. He's a Boston College kid. He's local, and I think that's always a nice thing to have as a player. It seems like Bill Belichick actually likes him. They've had visits with him, which means
and where he really got his jump, where people were starting to recognize him as a first rounder, was the Senior Bowl. And who did he work with for a week at the Senior Bowl? The New England Patriots coaching staff.
Right. I think if Zay Flowers is on the board, I have to see him being taken here. The Patriots need a wide receiver. If they thrust Mac Jones out there in another losing situation with no wide receiving talent, and it's not going to work.
Now, is there a chance you could trade down here if you're the Patriots?
Oh, Bill Belichick, absolutely.
Because I don't know if I think Zay Flowers might be on the board down at like, I mean, looking at the next few teams, I don't think the Packers take a wide receiver.
It's possible that that Belichick trades down.
Like, I think if he could trade down in this 17, 18, 19, 20 type range, maybe the Steelers want to secure their tackle before someone, or the Bucks want to go up and jump the Steelers for tackle, or
right.
get a guy, some team, or
I think it's Zay Flowers here.
But I'm saying still get Zay Flowers, but trade down. That's just a thought.
Right.
And if they like him enough, you don't risk it. But yeah.
I listen. I've seen Bill Belichick trade down enough in my life. I would ideally prefer him not to do that here and just take the player that I think is best suited for the organization.
And Zay Flowers is a great role. You can look at Amon-Ra St. Brown a couple of years ago. Even more so back, Antonio Brown, who's his biggest comp at this point, obviously.
Yeah, Antonio Brown, arguably the greatest wide receiver of this generation. I mean, it's just
and not saying fantastic. He's going to turn into that. Just the kind of football he plays molds that of Antonio.
Which means that at 15, we talked about this yesterday. The Packers really are in an odd situation, assuming that they trade Rodgers. They're not really a contending team, I don't think. I mean, they got Aaron Jones, so good for you. But their wide receivers are pretty bad. The whole team is just pretty bad. The defense isn't great. I think they go best player available, Luke Van Ness. We talked about this yesterday, Connor.
Lucas Van Ness is I mean, he was strong. He's versatile. And he's jumped up in boards a lot. You get a Midwest guy kind of near you there. And a great pass rusher. I think you just add depth to your D-line. A lot of teams do this when they're borderline, and you just get a good edge rusher that can fortify and other stuff later around. Obviously, Will Lucas
and by the way, it lost
note. And wide receivers.
It lost to Darius Smith last offseason. It makes sense to me. That's how it makes sense to me.
This is an odd mock for us because a lot of the time I have sometimes even 2 cornerbacks going up 10. And in this scenario, I think the Commanders are salivating at the chance to get Christian Gonzalez all the way down to 16.
Oh, absolutely. I think this is an excellent opportunity to get Christian Gonzalez.
I don't think 100. There's even thought behind that. If he drops there, you're seeing celebrations in their war room for them getting potentially the best corner in the draft at 16.
Yeah, the only time you'll see more celebrations out of a Commanders Commanders war room is if Dan
Dan
Snyder
Snyder
doesn't
sells the team.
if he sells the team. That's it. That's pretty much all that could ever happen. Yeah, I think Christian Gonzalez, let's keep it simple, let's keep it quick. We don't need to take more of these people's time up. We'll go Commanders taking Christian Gonzalez, which means we're at my Pittsburgh Steelers at number 17. And they got to take offensive.
I think everything points to O-line.
Yeah. I don't want Kenny Pickett to die, and neither does anyone else. You know, it's it makes sense to me.
And like they need a corner as well. If I'm looking at the corners on the board, I have the first pick in the second round, right? And a couple of these guys would go. But is anyone other than maybe Joey Porter head and shoulders above other prospects here? Like I'm putting Cam Smith on the same level as Garrett Williams here, and they'll both be there, and Emmanuel Forbes up. That I'm like, hey, at pick 32, which is basically a first round pick, just without a fifth-year team option.
No, it's a first round
I
pick.
can just get a corner there. Here, if I'm back at 31, I'm looking at tackles. I think, to me, Anton Harrison's the best on the board. DeJuan Jones has great size, but DeJuan Jones, Matt Bergeron, that's a level below Anton Harrison. Darnell Wright, who had a miserable Senior Bowl, was getting cooked in all drills. I don't think.
Right, and again,
I think it's Anton
Mike
Harris.
Tomlin, he's the type of coach who wants to control the time of possession. He wants to control the ball. Doesn't want turnovers. Doesn't want sacks.
And in a perfect, we have seen the Steelers trade up. Just last year they traded up to get Pickett right in the second round.
All I know, Connor, is last year I mocked the Steelers getting Pickett. So I feel like everyone should trust me when I say that the Steelers are drafting X player this year.
And obviously they're hoping one of these top 3 tackles probably get down to them, but I think you just take best tackle available here because the drop off at tackle is bigger than the drop off at corner. If Christian Gonzalez falls another pick, then yeah, maybe you discuss it, but I don't think he will drop that.
I don't think that happens.
We're going Ant.
I don't think that happens. All right, 18, excuse me. We are back with the Detroit Lions, and I think there are 2 players that the Detroit Lions take here. All right, I think it is either Michael Mayer or it's Dalton Kincaid. That's it. I think those are the 2 guys they will take.
I think once again, a scenario where if Gonzalez gets down here, you go for that best player on the board. A lot of time, I think the Lions will look for best player on the board, but there's a clear hole at tight end more so than a hole at receiver or.
Right, you lost Hawkinson,
Trade him away, yeah. The hole wasn't filled after you got traded away. Maybe if you had him, you would have made the playoffs type of thing.
Right, and think about it. That this one addition could be the biggest. It's gonna be huge. It could be huge for the Lions as a team. I think that they need a tight end. You're here, might as well grab your favorite of the 2.
And Dalton Kincaid is by far the best receiving tight end in this draft. He's your Travis Kelce type. He's kind of small for a tight end. And sure, he won't block a damn thing that well, but he's a great receiving type.
Right, and then for the Lions, you're saying, okay, we got Kincaid, we have Jameson Williams, both really in their first full seasons. We have Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's a
Jared Goff is probably the second best QB in the NFC.
Yeah, I mean, Kirk Cousins and then Jared Goff right there, 1-2. That was a joke, obviously, folks.
Top 3 if you want to have Kirk above.
Right, those are your 3 guys: Kirk, Hurts, and Goff.
He's up there as one of the best QBs in a division. This is a guy that was a salary throw-in for the Rams to get Stafford, who was seen as a bust at that point. He's been awesome. He's better than Stafford at this point. Obviously, that may be due to injuries, but.
And by the way, they still have their offensive coordinator, the same one as last year. So,
and it's a team that's high off momentum. You could not have had a better end of the season as the Lions did. You didn't even have the heartbreak of losing the playoffs. Now you're even more hungry to get to the playoffs.
Right, and you got to beat the Packers in Lambeau.
And the Packers just got a whole lot worse. You were Aaron Rodgers' last loss. He owned you for how many years, and you were his last loss.
Yep.
Last game.
All right, let's talk about team number 19, Connor, this is your team. I'll let you take the
Yeah,
reins on this one.
Will Levis is here. That's an option. I'm still letting Will Levis drop. It may be a big drop. PFM hasn't made it, but I'm letting him drop. And the guy I've looked at is Brian Branch. We did sign Ryan Neal recently. With Deontay Banks, who was our pick at 16, still on the board, I think you could go Banks, get more of a corner, and he'll be a slot. He'll be your slot guy. Good value first round. He'll start as slot guy, could move to outside. And then you really let Winfield instead of being a pseudo slot because we had so many cornerback injuries and playing 3 safety sets, 4 safety sets with Winfield as your slot. Just let Winfield be a safety and get a real slot.
Yeah, I mean, a defensive team. You still got Todd Bowles as your head coach for some reason. Um, you know,
let him have a year with an actual offensive.
right. Absolutely. All right. Bruins are tied 1-1. All right, let's go to the Seattle Seahawks. And they are back on, and we have them drafting another defensive alignment, this time an interior guy. Connor, do you still like that pick?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely options they could go. I think Will Levis could definitely be an option. And you don't even have to play him for 2 years. To be honest, just having a guy, Geno Smith, you're not expecting him to be a top QB, and if it doesn't work, you trade him. So I think we could definitely do kind of what the Packers did with Jordan Love and go this here. But we had a mocked Kayla Chansey who had a Aaron Donald-esque combine, looking at the speed numbers, the size numbers, everything. He won't be as good as Aaron Donald, but everything modeled that. Wide receiver 3 is an option here. Joey Porter's on the board, solid corner. Corner 2. We did already go D-line. Brian Greasy, another good D-line. It could go. Nolan Smith had a great combine. There's a few guys here that are possibilities. I don't know, Mike. I'm willing to go Will Levis here. I just don't know if I can turn down the value at this point. I mean, this is a guy you probably had some conversations of drafting 5th overall. And you trust Geno, but just that's a guy 5 years rookie contract. Teams recently have been winning on those rookie contract quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's the old Tom Brady rule. I mean, listen, if a quarterback's getting paid over $25 million a season, uh, they're not winning. They're not winning a Super Bowl. That's the rule. I mean,
Pat Mahomes.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, other than Pat Mahomes and the Manning so far, that's pretty much been it. So, I mean,
now the Miami Dolphins and now the LA Chargers are on the board.
Yeah, the Miami Dolphins, they got more bad news. Tyreek Hill says he will be retiring at the end of the 2025 season. Probably because he does not want to play with. Yeah, I mean, it was huge news. He said it on a podcast. I was surprised. I mean, 2025 Connor was. I mean, that's not that far away.
At the end of his contract.
That's the end of his contract, so he will not be re-signing
with
the Dolphins or anybody.
On retiring, venturing.
I mean, he seemed pretty serious about it. Obviously, things can change.
He's trying to be a Twitch streamer.
Yeah, but let's move on to the Los Angeles Chargers. One of the they're just such a weird team. I think they're gonna take a wide receiver because Justin Herbert needs a wide receiver who can play every single game of the season.
One guy that we can look into is tight end. I think Mayer is here.
Yeah, I mean, listen, what's his face is getting old. I forget his name. Who's their tight end? I have no idea. It's Gerald Everett.
Well, I think is Gerald Everett there or is he a free agent?
I don't know.
But I know they lost a few guys. I think they lost Parham, they lost Carter, who was kind of a great guy. So yeah, their skill position players are kind of in the dumpster at this point. And Keenan Allen was gonna be released, and they realized, hey, we have no wide receivers outside of our top two guys.
And Mike Williams is injury
prone as hell.
Games this season. Yeah.
And I think, I mean, looking at this Chargers team, you could take Quentin Johnson, who fills that same role of that big, physical wide receiver, or you could switch up the pace. Jordan Addison still on the board. I have him in some mocks as my wide receiver one off the board. I think he's strong. He's is really good release, gets separation. Obviously, I mentioned Mayer before. Get a true tight end. Good blocker as well, which can work, especially on their screen passes. They love the blocking for their screen passes. There's possibilities. You can always go defense. The secondary, despite spending more money than any team on the secondary, was awful last year.
Mm-hmm.
So at D line, they could use some help. Khalil Mack is not that guy, and his money's so big that he's still talked about as a potential cap casualty candidate. And you could get like a Nolan Smith here. There's a few guys you could go. But I'm willing to take the mold they've had of wide receivers that they like to have in recent years around Keenan Allen. And that's these bigger guys. Those Carter, the Joshua Palmers, those Dolan Parker, Parham.
Yeah, and
Eventually a receiver
let's pray you can stay healthy, Connor. I mean,
get the horned frog, Quentin Johnson.
All right, let's talk about 22. So we originally had this mocked as Will Levis. In Baltimore now. I mean, do they go wide receiver?
I think wide receivers a look. Baltimore tends to take freakishly athletic, best player available type guys. I think one guy on the board here is Nolan Smith. You could look at a possibility. They don't seem to like drafting skill position players. Lamar seems to be gone anyways. So what am I doing here? Taking a wide receiver. If I'm not paying quarterback regardless, I think you can buff up that defense again and get like a Nolan Smith, a Brian Breesy, or even like a Joey Porter type corner with Marcus Peters being a free agent.
Right.
That there's potential to kind of buff up this line, and they could go. They mold their freakishly athletic type guys, get a Nolan Smith who can be a quick outside linebacker, edge rusher. But I'm willing to go receiver if I want to.
Yeah, I mean, okay, here's the thing. I really want the Vikings to draft a wide receiver, so however you see that happening, if there's another wide...
I don't think I'm picking another wide receiver here outside of Addison at 23. I know there's been rumors that Josh Downs could jump into the first round, especially the Giants. But I'm willing to go. When I go Nolan Smith, fits the mold of what they've drafted in recent years, and then we can have the Vikings here get your guy Kirk Cousins a wide receiver too.
Yeah, I mean, I know Adam Thielen has, said that, he said, and I'm paraphrasing here, I wanted to go to Carolina because I feel like they're capable of winning a Super Bowl. Really, it's called money. I know he's heard of it. He makes a lot of it. Also, Adam Thielen is I'm not gonna say he's a very good wide receiver, but he's old.
He had a down season.
Yeah, he's a red zone target.
And you thought he'd jump up with Justin Jefferson a breakout. Really, it was like
he didn't. And KJ Osborne does not strike me as the.
Hawkinson was their number 2. Once they got Hawkinson, he was their clear second option. Get a real guy that can get real separation down the field. In Jordan Addison, and you can really have a special offense.
They actually have a good defense, and Andrew Booth did not.
Also, you're adding a very good defensive coordinator.
Right, and as long as you don't give up 40 points a game at Donatel, you'll be fine. So, all right, let's move on to the Jags. We had them taking Nolan Smith in our original mock draft.
We could go the other athletic D lineman in Kayla Chukchi, who can present them. He can be a D end before very fast. We could go tight end, we could go Mayer here. Um,
Okay, I don't like Mayer because I think that Engram schematically fit them so well last year. I don't think that they're probably going to be looking at
I mean,
something
he's
like
only
that.
tagged though, and they ran some two tight end sets with Dan Arnold. I think he could. I mean, their defense was not an issue last year. Um, like if I'm looking, uh, the kind of
No, I
depth
mean you're
chart,
right.
look
The
at the
defense was good.
holes. I think you could go DB potentially as an option. I think. Um, Brian Branch is fallen here. I think they definitely could use a safety.
Yeah,
That's a
that's a good pick.
possibility.
Who was their safety last year? It was someone really bad. I forget his name. It was
We're looking at their kind of depth chart now. You're looking at expected safeties to be Andre Cisco,
not bad.
great, and Ray James.
Rayshawn Jenkins. Yeah, he's horrible.
Andre Cisco
They
is
like
a Syracuse guy. If I remember.
I think he is. Yeah.
They've produced a few safeties. Him, Ellen Fonma, a few safeties last year.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I think their DB for the help. We're relying on Trey Herndon a lot as their CB2 as their slot guy. You can have Branch slide into the slot for a bit. I like that pick.
All right, let's do it.
Last guy you can consider, Osiris Torrance. Their interior offensive line was probably the weakest part of last season, but they did lose their OT1 really for the Chiefs. But I'm willing to go Brian Branch.
Let's do it. All right,
Giants
that
on
will
the
set up.
board.
Yeah, I think this is the perfect place for Michael Mayer. Obviously,
Yeah.
you just paid Daniel Jones money. You need to get him someone who can catch the football.
This is
'Cause
truly one of the best tight end classes I've seen in my I think.
right, and
It
listen,
is such a crazy tight end.
without Kenny Galladay, you have a big hole to fill. Kenny Galladay is an excellent player for the Giants organization, beloved by many, hated by few, despised by one. That would be me. Um, more specifically, the Giants wide receiving room is just Connor. It's like
It's rough.
a pile
It
of
is,
garbage. It's like Darius Slayton.
and you traded away your kind of guy there in Tony, who you just drafted in the first round year prior, and what got a third round pick. That's it out of him.
Yeah, and then he won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs. So great trade.
Wander
there
Robinson,
by
who you just drafted. Hopefully, he can be. I mean, he's a slot
he's
guy.
he looks pretty good, but
They
he
signed
doesn't strike me as a number one wide
Slayton
receiver.
is a solid outside receiver. I don't dislike Slayton, but Isaiah Hodgins,
But I mean,
Lewis
if
Campbell,
you
Jameson Crowder, that's yuck. One thing
if
for
you can
Mayer,
add
their tight end's Darren Waller now.
right,
But they did run two tight end sets. I think
right,
having
because
two
they
tight
run
ends
the
is
football a lot.
yeah. And Mayer can block. Mayer can definitely block.
Mayor and Waller's injury prone too. It's not like Waller doesn't get injured. And so I think that they can definitely draft Michael Mayer.
I don't mind that, and he's fast. Like a 4.6 something.
So originally we had the Cowboys mocked to draft Bijan, which I thought was a great pick because they just finally got rid of Zeke.
I'm going to go Kayla Chancey here. Jerry Jones loves his value pick. Micah Parsons, athletic guys who drop in the draft from where people expect them to go. Jerry Jones loves them because it caters to the fans, it caters to the mockers who are like, that's an amazing pick, and it feeds his ego. And sometimes they work out, such as Micah Parsons worked out great.
And sometimes they don't.
I think Kayla Chancey or Brian Breesy are solid options of a high-end D lineman. Obviously, they do need some D line help that they can go for. And running back, you can get that.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many running backs every year, anyways. It's not what I would call Connor a right now need.
The Bills,
You know.
I think we can stick. We had Joey Porter go there.
Yep, I still
Desperately
like
need
that.
some cornerback help. Get the Penn
Yeah,
State
you
physical
need
stand.
someone to play alongside Trey White. You know, why is that not Joey Porter? I mean, he's a good player, very solid. I think he's a good option for the for the squad for the Bills.
Um,
All right, let us talk about the next team.
this
That would be the
one's easy.
Bengals. Yep,
Pretty
we're
much.
taking the tackle.
Yeah, because I mean, they like you're looking at their biggest need. Tight end was there, signed Irv Smith. Tackle was there, signed Orlando Brown. You're like, hey, we're looking good. We can just draft cornerbacks. And then Jonah Williams is like, I don't want to move to the right tackle. I want to be traded. So now you're in a situation where you can trade him and take a tackle. They've been heavily linked to Darnell Wright, working out and everything. I think also, I mean, you were hoping to get maybe edge help, maybe pass rushing help, maybe cornerback help. At this point now, it sounds like I need a starting tackle, and I've interviewed Darnell Wright. I've held him for private workouts. This can be our guy. And we'll see what kind of value they may get out of Jonah Williams. Maybe he ends up saying, hey, fine, I'll stick around a year as a right tackle and then go get paid as a left tackle, whatever not. And he drafts someone else. But right now it feels like he's gone, and the guy they're going to get to replace him, if he's on the board, will be Darnell Wright. Who I don't think will be very good. I think Joe Burrow's going to struggle with this because that kid looked horrible for the Senior Bowl, especially drills, just quick first step. He doesn't have it. But maybe they can coach him up. Maybe they can get him in better shape.
They better hope so. Otherwise, Joey B's gonna die behind that O line.
Yeah. Orlando
All
Brown
right,
will
let's
hold
talk
as many
about
guys as he can, as many penalties as he can.
29. I think we can keep this one the same as well. Brian Breesy. It feels like a very Saints pick to me.
Yeah, D-line help. They need help a lot of places, but I think adding on that makes sense here. That's a good. Pick 30. I'm gonna go Emmanuel Forbes here, because we didn't have him draft corner earlier. We had them instead go Bihan, and I think this is a guy you've worked out, a guy you've looked at. They can get a top corner for them on the board, still be really happy with it. Another option which we mocked before was Osiris Torres. Obviously, they lost their starting right guard. They've been trying the center they drafted to replace Kelsey a couple years ago. They've really been having him do guard workouts, but like this guy's not played a snap of guard since probably high school. Maybe not even that type thing. So I'm not really trusting that as my guard. But at this point, let's trust it. Let's go Emmanuel Forbes. Get them another corner. Obviously, Slay or Bradbury expect to be cut after this year as a cap. Obviously, both of them have non-guarantees on their deals. So let's do that. Now the
final team, right?
City.
Second. Yep. And do you want to keep it the same?
Yeah. There's a few places that could go. Josh Downs as a receiver is an option. They could get secondary help. It's definitely a bit of an issue. I think O-line they could use some. So maybe Osiris Torres goes here. But Will McDonald has shot up draft boards as an outside linebacker, speed rusher. He's solid. He was good at State, and he's really fast. And they're kind of rotational. They lost Frank Clark. He's not filling that hole, but he's just helping them generate pass rush. Him and Karlaftis would generate them a bunch of good speed rushing on
the. Yeah, I like it, and I think this is a very good mock of the first round. It definitely could happen. I'm not saying it will. Yeah, I mean, that's how I see it, Connor. I mean, any final thoughts before we close out this lengthy episode?
No, and I think it went pretty well here at this point. I'm just gonna pull up the entire draft
Yeah,
board
and
here.
while Connor's doing that, please tune back in for the master plan mock draft. Sorry, not mock draft. For the actual live
Actual
draft
draft.
reaction stream, is year number 4 of this, Connor. This is our longest running tradition here at the Master Plan, and I think I speak for everyone in saying, this is going to be another great year, I believe. Another fun draft. It's always a lot of fun seeing everyone's mock drafts, making picks, having a lot of fun, and most importantly, you know, making fun of the stupid picks that the Raiders will probably make. So, Connor, you all set?
Getting to zoom in. But yeah, if we just scroll down for our mock here.
Yep. There you go, folks. Look at it in awe. When every one of these picks is correct, I demand full credit. And if anyone makes any money off of this, I require 5% a 5% fee. So, just keep that in mind. If you're gonna make bets on who's going where draft night, remember 5% goes directly to me. You can Venmo me, give it to me in cash, or in gold bars. I accept all forms of payment here at the Master Plan. So thank you all for listening. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to Connor for joining us. We'll be back soon, folks. As always, here at the Master Plan, we are here to stay, and we will keep producing content for you for free.